Hi, good evening. I'm County Councilmember George Leventhal, and I want to welcome you to our Town Hall meeting on issues affecting people with different abilities. I'm very, very glad to see so many of you here. I've had the honor of serving as chairman of the County Council's Health and Human Services Committee for the last 15 years, and issues affecting those with different abilities have been very high on the committee's agenda. I like to believe that Montgomery County is in the forefront of services and assistance to those who most need a government on their side. But as my time on the County Council winds down, I wanted to leave behind some policy options for those who will fill elected offices in this county in the future. And we've begun doing that with this report by the Office of Legislative Oversight, which has options regarding housing for adults with developmental disabilities. So many of my constituents who are parents have visited with me over the years, and although we have very good services, sometimes in group homes, sometimes assistance with independent living, the parents worry about what will happen when they're no longer around to be an advocate for their son or their daughter. And so I asked OLO to review the landscape of housing options and to make recommendations for policy action. The Health and Human Services Committee, which I chair, will be jointly reviewing the Office of Legislative Oversight's recommendations with the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee later this year. You can find the OLO report if you go to www.montgomerycountymd.gov/OLO and click on the link that's titled Reports Completed Since 2001 and go to 2017 Reports and click the link that reads Housing for Adults with Developmental Disabilities. It's report 2017-13. But I didn't want to just stop with the housing issue. As I say, this is an issue of great concern to me, and in my remaining time on the County Council, I wanted to assist those who will follow in the future, both whomsoever may be our next county executive and whoever may serve in the future on the County Council, to identify options for employment, for education, options to combat discrimination, and any other issues that those who experience these issues may face. And so I'm going to stop talking in just a moment, and I just want to listen and ask anyone who would like to be recognized. And my staff member, Mr. Walton Harris, has done a great job of organizing this meeting tonight. How will speakers speak? Oh, you'll have a microphone. Mr. Harris will bring a microphone to you. I'm not going to remain standing the whole evening. If you don't mind, I'll sit down. We're also joined by our outstanding Director of Health and Human Services, Uma Alawalya, who has headed that department since February of 2007. Ms. Alawalya and I are partners on a whole range of issues from public health to people with disabilities to issues affecting the elderly, drug addicted, mentally ill, abused and abandoned children, the whole portfolio of issues affecting those who most need a government on their side. And one of her key staff members, Dr. John, we call him Jay Kenny, who has been Chief of Aging and Disability Services essentially since 1996 under a few different organizational structures. And Jay provides leadership and support to a range of programs with the goal of enabling older adults, individuals who are differently abled, and their family caregivers to achieve the highest quality of life and participate fully in all aspects of our community life. These programs include resource coordination for individuals receiving services in the Autism Waiver Program, coordination of community services, respite care, adult protective services, home care, and other home and community-based support services. So with that, I'm going to ask anyone who would like to be heard. Again, our focus tonight is to develop policy options for the future. So your testimony as to what your family members or your clients may have experienced is relevant, and we want to hear it. It would also be helpful if you could make suggestions for how county government can be more effective and more responsive on those issues. If you have recommendations for state government, that's fine as well. Montgomery County does, of course, advocate with the state to serve those clients who most need a government on their side. But our primary focus will be developing policy options for the next round of elected officials who will be representing this county. So I'm going to, again, bring Mr. Walton Harris to your attention, and anyone who would like to be heard in this town hall meeting format, kindly raise your hand, and Mr. Harris will get to you with the microphone. So who would like to speak first? Somebody's got to break the ice. Please, Betty.
Hi, my name is Betty Bahadori, and I have a son who's 30 years old and has severe autism. And I was cleaning out my email today. And going back to 2004, it's an annual thing to ask the county council for the supplement. And right now, there's very good support for it. But every year, we have to rally. And I'm wondering if they can have the foresight to see that we will always want to have those caregivers at a higher rate than minimum wage. Do you see any way that we can work with the state and the county to ensure a good wage for caregivers?
Great. I'm going to respond to that, although for the most part, I'm not going to try to answer every question. What I'm trying to do tonight is really get input about what's on your minds in the hope that working with the department and working with my staff, we'll be developing policy options. But I can tell you that there is discussion underway of passing a bill that would set as a standard that the caretakers for people with different abilities would remain at 125% of minimum wage. As you know very well, Betty, because we see each other every year, the county executive sends over a budget each year, and the county council acts on that budget. And for the last 15 years as committee chairman, I have made sure that we have funded the wage supplement, and in many years, we've had to add funds. The county council has added funds above the executive's budget recommendation because we know how important those relationships are between the individuals who are differently abled and their caretakers. If we pass this bill, it would really be kind of a hortatory statement. This county council cannot legally bind future county councils to specific appropriations levels. But passing the legislation would at least set a mark whereby future county councils would know that that's a very important goal. And we've done that with other programs in the past. Did you have a follow-up comment, Betty?
I was surprised in my emails. In 2014, it was 1.36%. And so that has been eaten away. So can
But
you
the
look
wage has also gone up,
historically?
right?
Yes,
So the minimum wage is healthier now, so those caretakers should be earning more.
correct.
Yep. Good. Thank you. That's an excellent point. Other comments or questions? Please.
Hi, Barbara Pope. Along the same subject of minimum wage is health benefits. For minimum wage individuals, getting health care is almost impossible or unaffordable. And if the county could look at negotiating a blanket policy for all health providers, not just those with different abilities, but all healthcare providers, that you could buy into a group policy, with safety, savings in numbers.
Indeed.
So-
Right. So again, I'm not going to try to, I don't want to pretend to be, the be-all, end-all and know all the answers. It happens that healthcare for the uninsured is something I know quite a bit about. And the challenge has always been that no matter how large the group, there is still a significant premium requirement on the individual participant. And so for two reasons. First of all, no county with its own resources has been able entirely to fill the gap. We are very much dependent on Medicaid, and we hope that the Maryland Health Connection will remain in place. As you know, Congress is trying to dismantle the insufficient structure that exists now. We need to continue to partner very vigorously with our state legislature, with our governor, and with Congress for example, it's a shame that when the Affordable Care Act was passed, a public option was not provided, because had a public option been provided in all 50 states, that would have brought down premiums through competition. That conversation needs to be back on the table, and whoever serves in elected office in the future in Montgomery County, whoever the next county executive is, I hope will be a vigorous advocate for universal coverage. We've come about as close as a county can to achieving universal coverage through the expansion of Medicaid, through the availability of the Maryland Health Connection, and through our own network of community clinics called Montgomery Cares, which I founded back in 2005. I hope those will remain viable. It's very important that the next county executive be very visible and active in Annapolis, trying to make sure that the state continues to shore up those programs. That's enormously important for people with disabilities who have so much at stake with Medicaid coverage. And so we need advocacy at every level. Did you want to expand on any of those points, Uma?
I think you covered it well. Hi, my name is Rita Scheinberg. I have a son that's 32. And one of my, well, there's many concerns, but my son's 32 with developmental disabilities. One of the concerns is affordable housing.
Absolutely.
Besides support, I'm also run a support group called MC Transitions, and that's a big complaint of families. Now, some families I know, their kids do qualify DDA, but there's others that are on the border that didn't qualify, but still their children need significant help and need affordable housing. Now, my son lives in an affordable housing unit in Crossings in Old Town Gaithersburg. It's still $1,100 for a one-bedroom apartment.
Does he live independently or with a
He
group?
does live independently.
Great.
He was lucky enough to get an HOC voucher.
And
They
does
are
he have an
far and in
attendant
between.
who assists
He
him?
has help.
Uh-huh.
He has DDA.
Yeah.
He has support. And plus, we're in a wonderful nonprofit integrated living opportunities that provides him support to the community, which has just been amazing. So you need to support more innovative programs. But the problem is there isn't. These kids, these young adults need to be on transportation. Many of them can't drive. Even if they're on whatever level they are, a lot of them don't drive. And the problem is most of the housing, like say Rockville Pike, which is the best place to live in this county, is very expensive. So what does the county plan to do? Like Bethesda would be a perfect place for people to live, but you can't afford to live in Bethesda.
That's right.
So even on an HOC voucher, my son cannot afford to live any closer than probably Gaithersburg unless he can find an MPTU, and that's hard. So what I'm saying is that, one, the vouchers are limited, and you have to have won lottery to get one, and second, there just isn't the buildings, and they have to be on transportation.
I really appreciate that testimony, and that's exactly why I asked OLO to address precisely that point. And so I'm looking forward to the committee discussion on OLO's recommendations. We're also engaging at the county council in an overarching discussion of rental housing policy and whether the MPDU program, which was cutting edge, best in class in the 1970s, needs a real revamp, and whether we need to adjust the thresholds for controlled below market rate units for the cost of building units in different locations. It is no longer, it doesn't necessarily make sense any longer that you ought to have a uniform threshold of 12.5% set aside below market rate housing in every part of the county, because the cost of constructing housing is substantially different depending on the value of land and depending on the rents that those projects can command that offset the cost of providing the subsidized housing. I also think it's time to start talking about more set-asides within our housing program so that we're sure that some of those units with certainty go to house people of different abilities, as well as, which I have done, set aside funds in our Housing Initiative Fund to target our homeless population, the people who are most in need. So I'm very eager to engage in that conversation, and how do we make sure that the housing programs are not only meeting the needs of those who are just below 80% of AMI, but who have resources to find housing on their own. I've always been an advocate for making sure that we look to those who really can't manage on their own as a first priority, and I hope that conversation will continue, and your testimony is very helpful. So I've already introduced Walton Harris, who will be bringing you the microphone. I also want to introduce the Reverend Jeffrey Thames, who's here, and Reverend Thames will, do you have a clipboard? Yes. Yeah, so I would be delighted if everyone could, if you are so inclined, Reverend Thames will be going around getting your name and address and email address, because as we develop these policy options, we'd like to share drafts and get your thoughts on them so that we know how to reach you. We're very glad that you're here tonight. So Reverend Thames, if you'll make sure that everyone who, it's voluntary, but if you're willing to, if you could leave behind your contact information so we know how to reach you. And Walt, I think there's a question here.
Hi, my name is Eleni Martin, and sort of piggybacking on this idea of the affordable housing on Rockville Pike, for young adults who are able to be employed, finding employment that's accessible, doesn't take 3 hours on buses and metro to get to, if there is any, would be really great. So is there anything in the pipeline about partnerships with larger, I would assume probably larger employers for hiring people with disabilities?
You know, that's so important, and I hope that maybe some of the publicity that we'll generate tonight and other efforts we can make to communicate with employers, in my experience, when you hire people who are differently abled, they're extraordinarily enthusiastic and they're very loyal. Once someone who is differently abled finds employment, they tend to stay for a long time and get well-trained and bring a lot to the workplace. So it's a great benefit to the individual and also to the employer. And that's a message that I know Jay Kenny has been working to communicate, but that we need to do a better job of communicating throughout the business community, that it's just a great opportunity to hire individuals who are going to stay for a long time, stay loyal to the company, and really bring great gratitude and energy to the task. So we've got to do a better job of communicating with employers. Did you have other thoughts about what more we should be doing? You need the microphone.
I wish
Yeah.
I had more solutions.
Mhm.
I don't right now, because I've been working with my daughter, trying to find that out. I mean, at this point, she's not getting, she's working with an agency. I hope it's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, she's working with an agency to try to find employment, but, and no offense to you guys, but once a year, somebody comes out to make sure she's alive and I'm not dead.
Mhm.
Which is how it feels, because at that point, then more stuff will kick in. And I feel like, yeah, we'll check the box and let you do it, you know, you guys have to be the ones to pester me, because I see no value.
The point being that the annual check-in is not frequent enough, that there's not enough contact?
Check-in is just that, it's to make sure I'm not dead and she's alive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not doing anything to help.
Here,
me
use the
find a job.
microphone. If you could speak into the microphone, dear. What's your name?
Catherine Lyons.
I'm so glad you're here, Catherine.
It's just, those meetings are not helping me find a job. I
Mhm.
kind of don't feel why those, if they're not giving me services, why should that meeting even happen?
Sure. Well, you're on television right now. Do you want to talk about what sort of job you'd like to do?
Right now, I want to work in an office.
Uh-huh.
I mean, long-term, I want to be a video game designer, but as of right now, I want to work in an office.
Very cool. All right. Good luck to you. Thank you. Other comments or questions? The technician wants to talk to Mr. Harris. Raise your hand if you have other comments or questions, and Mr. Harris will get to you in just a moment. Okay, we've got two questions here in the front row.
I'm Karen Leggett with the Transition Work Group, and I'll make a comment and a question. The comment relates to the postcard everybody has. Our group runs the annual resource fair for young adults with developmental disabilities, and it'll be this Saturday at Montgomery College, Rockville, from 10 to 1. You'll see a lot of the people here today, but a lot of resources, people and agencies and nonprofit groups offering lots of services, so we hope we'll see you there. My question also relates to employment. A few years ago, county voters approved a hiring preference, question A,
Yes.
for people with disabilities, veterans and others with disabilities, and that's worked very well. They've been entry-level positions that a lot of people have been able to get because
Great.
of that. I've recently learned that hiring preference works once. So once the person is hired in that position with that preference, if they want to move ahead, they don't get that preference anymore. They have to compete with the highest level. They don't have to just be qualified for the job. They have to compete with those who are most qualified for the job, which essentially leaves a lot of people at that entry-level position. And I would like the council and the county government to consider other ways for these individuals who are hired to then move ahead, to give them a chance to move ahead
Advance in their
and
career.
to progress.
That's a great point. Thank you very much. If Jay or Uma want to comment at any point, just raise your hand and Walt will come and recognize you. Yeah.
We totally agree that there is insufficient employment, the type and the extent and the hours that folks need. I just want to make sure that individuals did know about the special hiring authority that Karen mentioned, which has been very successful on a small scale. We need to grow that. We need to address the issue that Ms. Leggett just mentioned there. But I also want to just make sure if folks are not aware of the Project Search program, which is operating to provide internships that hopefully lead to employment. That's the goal, not just to do an internship and let it end there, but is to give individuals skills that they then can compete for employment. And also the public intern program, which we will celebrate the 10th year anniversary of that program tomorrow night with the Commission on People with Disabilities. And again, it's limited, it's 18-month employment experience, but it's all geared to give people the skills to advance either in county government or in the private sector. insufficient, but things we are still trying to work at and to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, got 2 comments here.
Hi, name is Terry Rowe.
Hi, Terry.
Hi. George, my question is, actually, it's piggybacking off of something that somebody said earlier regarding transportation. I think it was just a mention, but my 28-year-old son, Corey, relies on Metro Access multiple times a day. He takes probably at least 6 rides, and they have just been unreliable. They have a maximum amount of time, 50 minutes, that somebody should be on a vehicle. He had a recent experience of an hour, 45 minutes on a vehicle, and most of the time he actually rides by himself. And so he's verbal, but he doesn't speak up. And he's had some terrible recent experiences. And so is there something that could be done as far as oversight, as far as maintaining the limits that they have set upon? I mean, on this one ride, he was picked up initially, another person was picked up, they were dropped off, another person was picked up, they were dropped off, and then my son was on for an inordinate amount of time. Is there anything that you could do to assist?
I'm sorry that happened, and I'm sure there is. I don't know, Jay, if you want to talk about the Metro Access program, or otherwise we'll just take the input, and it's certainly something we need to be very serious about. We've heard complaints over many years about it.
We do have a transportation coordinator at Health and Human Services who's been aware of these issues and has been working. The problem is Metro is a separate entity altogether outside of county government, so we have to work with them. We do convey a lot of the concerns that we continue to have. We've heard this over and over. It's not the first time. And so, and in fact, there are members of the state delegation last year who got really exercised about this issue and wanted to do something. I believe there have been some back and forth conversations, and we raised these issues, and they immediately, they are responsive, when concerns are raised, but its sustainability becomes an issue, I think. So it's just an area we need to continue to work with you on.
I see there's a business card here for a representative of Senator Chris Van Hollen. Is he here? I want to recognize Patrick McCarthy representing Senator Van Hollen. We're glad you're here. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, my name is Margie Villian. I'm actually asking this for a friend, actually Ida Sandver. She could not be here tonight because she hurt her back. Apparently there used to be a special dental fund with the county for special needs adults, and that somehow got done away with. Is there any possibility that can be put back into the budget? Because, I mean, I'm on the Foundation Board of Jubilee, and we do have a dental fund for our people at our agency, but other agencies don't have that. And people's teeth are very vital to their health.
Thank you, Margie. Again, we're eager to hear what are the primary issues that families are facing, and certainly dental care is one. I appreciate that. And we've been joined by our state delegate, Al Carr, from District 18. Good to see you, Delegate Carr.
Hi, I'm Debbie Fickenshire. I'm the mother of Elaine, who's 33 and living on her own. And I just going to piggyback on the transportation. Transportation is critical, and recently my daughter was in a Metro Access van for 2.5 hours, was late to work. But today, I was able to get into the rideability program. So her subscription is now with Regency Cab. They're a little more expensive, but it's a one-on. She will be picked up and taken. So I'm hoping that will work, because that would respond to the issue that has been raised. I would just like to piggyback on what's been said about affordable housing, and many of our folks who do have, for example, live in a group home, those group homes are not convenient for transportation. And that's a big issue for people who should be able to come and go and make decisions. And that's really a critical issue.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest dilemmas we have, is that the most affordable housing tends to be the furthest away from public transportation. That's an enormous dilemma.
And then the other thing is, if you get the housing and you are on transportation, wouldn't it be lovely to have a job?
Thank you. Good. Very well stated. Way back in the back there.
Hi, my name is Jadid Rosales. I have a son who is 14 years old. He's really disabled, and I don't have any help. Like, you guys have everything, the services, more in Silver Spring. I don't have like any aftercare for him because he is not tolling training, he's nonverbal, and he needs a lot of help. But I don't have any help from you guys.
So I'm going to connect you with Jay Kinney, who heads our Aging and Disability Services, and Jay is very familiar with all of the service providers in the county, and I'm confident that there's probably a service provider who can be of help.
Okay,
So-
because at school we have troubles too. Like, I don't have the right program for my son, and it's really overwhelming at this time.
I understand, and that's why we're having this meeting, to hear from you.
Okay.
Thank you for being here. And please meet Dr. Kenny. Who else would like to share their story or ask a question or make an observation?
Hi, I'm Susan Ingram, and I work for Community Support Services, one of the provider agencies. And my comment is, as the county does look at employment opportunities, we have made some progress in the county in terms of a couple of different hiring programs. But one area that still could be looked at is the procurement process for getting contracts. With the amount that the county puts out for contracts, if either percentages of persons with disabilities could be included in those contracts in order to, win points or earn those contracts, partnerships, or set-asides that a few exist for persons with disabilities where the contracts were set aside, actually. The problem, of course, is we need contracts that are less large, that are not quite so bundled, and unbundling some of those into smaller contracts could provide some different opportunities for people.
Susan, thank you so much for that, and I really appreciate your adding procurement to the list of policy options that we need to address. I've done a lot of work on the procurement issue. Mr. Harris actually has staffed me on it over the years, and there is an MFD program, with D standing for disabled, but their compliance is not always what we would like it to be. The county does execute contracts with agencies like CSS to provide certain services, but we need to do a better job of monitoring that to make sure that we are meeting our targets, and I'm really glad you brought that up because it is absolutely another great way that we can build the employment base. So it's a really excellent point, and that'll be definitely part of the policy options that we leave behind. Any other questions? Any other suggestions?
My name is Mary Ann, and my son Eli Lewis is on the client representative to ArtStream. I just wanted to thank the county very much for their support over the years. It's a wonderful program that allows young folks of all types to learn skills, to gain confidence, to be able to assert their independence, and truly gain skills to be able to speak and eventually get, jobs, hopefully, with these skills. So it's a wonderful program,
It is.
and we really appreciate your support.
That's so nice. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. I was just at the ArtStream gala, and there was a performance there. And when you see the individuals who are, doing a comedy routine and telling jokes and performing music in front of an audience, it's just tremendous. I mean, they were having so much fun, and they were so good at it. And absolutely, I mean, I know from my own experience in high school drama, I didn't become an actor, but I became a public speaker, and I don't have stage fright, and no matter where you are on whatever spectrum, the appearance of, the experience of appearing in public is a huge confidence builder, and ArtStream is just a terrific organization. It's spun off from Imagination Stage, and now it's doing very well with support from the Arts and Humanities Council and from the County Council. So, yeah, you bet. So thanks for mentioning that. It's a really good organization. Well, here, we'll get this gentleman here, and then there's a woman all the way in the back.
Hello, my name is Irfan Mortaza. I live here in Rockville. I'm a parent of a 7-year-old who's on the autism spectrum. This past summer was the first time that my son was able to participate in a camp, City of Rockville camp, because of the companionship services that they offer. And so he was with neurotypical kids, and he had a very patient, understanding, helpful companion help him navigate the camp day. And it was a wonderful experience. And he ran into campers later in the summer. They said, "Hi, Hanif," and they were so excited to see him, and he was excited to see them, and he had a very positive experience. And I would just like to advocate for the county to continue its inclusion services in recreation in the camps, and then also classes during the rest of the year.
Tremendous. Thank you so much. I had the chance to visit the JCC summer camp, which is very, very well integrated and where people of every ability are really mainstreamed. And it's just a great experience for everybody, not just for those who are differently abled, but for the other kids to understand about inclusion and patience and empathy. It really was a great thing to see, and I'm glad to hear that the City of Rockville has a camp like that as well. Okay, a lot of hands going up now. This is good, but they're all the way over in the back of the room.
Hi, thank you for having this, by the way. Really,
Thank you.
I know I'm glad to be here. My name is Peg Colm. I live in Kensington, in Delegate Carr's neck of the woods. And I am a parent, my husband and I are parents of a 26-year-old who's receiving self-directed services. And I just want to say one quick thing about housing. I missed the first part of the meeting, but housing takes a long time to put together. So leadership from the county to create those plans and linkages with developers is really critical, well in advance of when people need the housing. So
Yes.
Please continue that leadership. And the second thing is this idea that the new settings rule from the federal government is really going to be bringing more people out into the community and outside of their sheltered workshops, for instance. And I think Montgomery County has always been that sort of incubator for places like ArtStream and Spirit Club. And I just think that I just want to encourage the county to continue to be that incubator so that people, when they are coming out of their enclosed workspaces or group homes, whatever, that the county will really be helping everybody else be ready for this, because we know we're coming to the county residents, but I don't know that the county residents know that there's going to be more of us out there experiencing and participating.
Long-term planning.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Thank you. Really good point. Susan Curry-Hartung.
First, my name's Susan Curry-Hartung, and I want to thank George for, not putting a picture of me in my bathing suit on his. But those were my two children on there, Warren and Emily Hartung, and they're 27 and 32. And I want to start by thanking Health and Human Services, J&M, years ago when the whole resource coordination kind of turned over at the state level, how it was funded. I think it's a really difficult job, which is now called Coordination Community Services, and I think all the agencies providing it are doing a great job. But I think it was important for Montgomery County to keep its hand in that, and they have done that, and we applaud that. And out of that group that came from that, we do have a Developmental Disability Advisory Committee. That's a subcommittee of the Commission on People with Disabilities that meets the second Monday of every month, except this month because it was Columbus Day, at 4 o'clock at 401 Hungerford Street. Everybody's welcome. It's an open meeting. We've been going about our 4th year now, so come join us and talk about some of these issues. Thanks.
Thank you for your leadership, Susan. We appreciate it. All right. Betty had another question?
No, it's a comment.
Yeah.
I'm from rural Michigan, and I brag about the recreation opportunities in Montgomery County and how beneficial they are to people with disabilities and everybody. And so in the future, as the budget goes on and money sometimes gets really tight, we do have to do the long-term planning, not lose our green space, hold on to our pools, keep them maintained. We really value the recreation department here and their efforts for people with disabilities.
Very good. Thank you. And in fact, there's a partnership with a developer in downtown Silver Spring to bring online a tremendous new aquatic facility, which will also provide special help for people who need therapeutic water therapy and other aspects for elderly and people with different abilities. So It's going to be a magnificent new facility that came about as the result of just what we're talking about, innovative partnerships with the developer.
Just so folks know who's here, I will be staying to speak to the woman that we connected earlier, my business cards. I want to make sure you know that Kim Mayo, who's the administrator of the programs that were mentioned, the Coordination of Community Services and Autism Waivers here, along with Eldora Taylor and Rosemary DiPietro, supervisor, so you can connect with any of us. And since the shout out was given to Rec, if you don't mind, Mr. Leventhal, I do want to mention that Charlie Butler and Robin Riley from Rec Department are here, Therapeutic Rec, and I know they'll be happy to answer any questions you have as well. Thank you.
Thank you. In fact, Robin, if you'd like to discuss either the new aquatic center that's coming online or some of the other programs that our rec department provides, I was interested in what Irfan said about the City of Rockville summer camp, but if you don't mind, Robin, maybe you could talk about the services our Department of Recreation offers.
Sure, happy to. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here. It's important for us to hear what the community's interests and needs are so we can react better to it and plan for it, like we just talked about. We offer a wide variety of summer camps throughout the year. We also offer inclusion camps so that kids have opportunities to take every type of class and activity that we normally would have for anybody else. Charlie Butler leads a lot of our therapeutic recreation camps, which have been fantastic as part of the ESY extension program. So it's really exciting for us, and we're seeing a lot of growth in that area. It's exciting for us to meet the need. South County, as Mr. Leventhal identified, is an opportunity for us to partner with HOC and some others in the down county area in South Silver Spring. It'll be part of a high-rise complex. We'll be on the lower floor with a wide variety of pool amenities, one of them being a therapeutic recreation pool, which is exciting for me. My aquatic staff I fight them all the time about swimming fast and having the water temperature a little bit warmer. For fast swimmers like the water colder, everybody else, including me, likes it warmer. So that pool will meet that need as well. So we're pretty excited about it. It's going to break ground probably in about a year. So we look forward to having everybody come and visit. Thanks.
Thank you for being here, Robin. Right behind you there, Walt.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Post, and I'm the mother of a developmentally disabled daughter. I'm on the foundation board of Jubilee, and you may have addressed this already because I came in a little late, but I was wondering what you will do to help the agencies serving developmentally disabled individuals continue to pay the 125% with the new minimum wage.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, you did arrive a little late, but we'll forgive you. And that was the very first question. It was Betty Bahadori asked it, but I'll go ahead and repeat it for those who also came in late. So we do put our budgets together 1 year at a time, and I've worked on 15 of them. And every year I've championed adding funding above. Sometimes the county executive came in with a recommendation that was just what was needed, but most years not. And most years the county council has added funding. We've been raising the minimum wage over the last several years, so the wage is getting better, and our goal is that we want to maintain at least 125% of the minimum wage so that you're not at the very bottom of the barrel in the job market, and that you hope to retain employees and stay for a good long period of time and manage our cost of living here in Montgomery County, which is so much higher than the other jurisdictions at the state rate. So we are considering legislation because we're discussing a further increase in the minimum wage. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm not sure where the votes are on that on the county council, but we're also considering legislation that would state as a permanent goal that we would maintain a threshold for the caretaker wage of 125% above the minimum. Now, that would be a goal because we don't have the legal authority to bind future county councils or county executives in terms of appropriations. It will always be the case under our charter that each year the county executive proposes a budget based on available resources, and each year the county council has to balance the budget based on the county council's priority with available resources. But we've had other programs in the past, like the amount of set aside that we put in our Housing Initiative Fund, the amount of money that we put from the hotel tax into the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So there have been examples of resolutions or bills that have passed the county council in the past, which were not binding on future county councils, but which set a goal that the executive then in future utilized in putting, it's always been he, I want to say his or her because we don't know who will be county executive in the future, but putting the budget together. So we're actively talking about a measure that would enshrine a goal of 125%. But regardless of whether that bill passes or not, it would certainly be my hope, we don't know who will be county executive in the future, but whoever that individual may be would understand that that is the goal and the importance of maintaining those people and maintaining those relationships with the clients, because continuity and the personal friendships that develop are extremely, extremely important. So that's been very important to me. I want to say it hasn't been controversial at the county council. The council generally, I've been the leader given my committee assignment and my personal commitment to it, but the county council generally has gone along with it every time I and my committee have recommended it. We've added to the executive's budget, but you know, it's certainly something that we will have very high on the list of these policy options that I'm developing. Thank you. It's great to be here with all of you.
I'm back again.
Please. Second helpings are okay.
Thank you. I've been working, my daughter self-directs, and I'm a member of a group that has been working, as well as many people here, on the new waiver, that a renewal waiver that DEA is proposing. And part of that, and Peg Cullen mentioned it, the whole idea that people with disabilities are going to be out in the community more. For many of our agencies and for our self-directed, that's going to take a little bit more money to do that in the way that we're supposed to do it. So I noticed that we have a representative from Senator Townhall's office. Maybe the federal government can help us a little bit on this, but it's going to cost more money than, and my concern is my daughter has a limited budget.
Right. Well, more important than anything else, and Montgomery County can't do it by ourselves, we've got to prevent the dismantlement of Medicaid. And and you couldn't ask for a stronger champion on that issue than Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. He's been right out in front. He thoroughly understands it, given his many committee assignments in the House and the Senate over the years. You just couldn't ask for a better champion. And Senator Cardin as well, who's on the Finance Committee, which has direct oversight over it. So Maryland's congressional delegation is so good, and we need them now more than ever with the dysfunction in the White House and the efforts by the majority party in Congress to dismantle health care. We're just very, very fortunate to have Senator Van Hollen, Senator Cardin, Congressman Raskin, Congressman Delaney, Congressman Sarbanes. We've got an excellent group there that really does understand these issues.
Well, the other thing that they're going to dismantle is they're coming back on the HUD budget program.
Also,
Big cuts.
Indeed. And I know that Mr. McCarthy is taking notes to take back to Senator Van Hollen.
I have a question, because Montgomery County, you know, fortunately we have a lot of benefits here, and which is why we stay here, despite the fact that we're senior citizens and it's very expensive to live here. But
We also have an excellent county council.
And you have, you do, wonderful. But anyway, one of the things I have is it's great at your job. My son has been fortunate to be working 5 years in the retail area. They don't pay a lot, but with the, you know, he now gets $11.50 or whatever an
Right.
hour. But one of the things, the new things you have is sick and safe leave, which has been very complex for a lot of people to figure out. But, so I had the form, and I had his job developer take it to his job, and they said they don't have to give it to Robert. Even though Robert works 24 hours a week, his retail place claims they don't have to do it. Now, the problem is my son can't go advocate for it. The job, you know, they send it to their corporate people who are in Pennsylvania, and they say they don't have to do it because Robert doesn't work 30 hours a week. Now, you know, I understand that the county is not really enforcing the rule, and I'm just wondering what you can do about it and what we can do about it. I don't want to make a big fuss. I don't want him to lose his job, and I don't think it's up to me to make the fuss about it, but this is a big retailer that's not doing it.
So I was the sponsor of the sick and safe leave law, and if memory serves, I believe it applies to anyone who's working more than 20 hours a week. And
8 hours a week.
so,
And does that mean, yeah, but they claim because, you know, retail is not always the same hours each week. Is that reason they don't have to offer it?
so here's what we're going to do is either Mr. Harris or I will give you our business card, and you can email the specifics of your son's situation, and we'll take it to the Office of Human Rights, and we'll make sure that we get an interpretation that he can, or you, can take to his employer. It's enforced.
I don't want to deal with his employer. I don't think I'm trying to get him in his job, but his job developer already tried to do it.
Well, we can be
And
of
they
help
said
to you.
no.
We can be your advocate. My office can advocate for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think because a lot of people, they're having problems. I don't think a lot of the employers in this county are offering it to their people on retail. I really do not think
It's very
they're doing
important that I hear that from you, and I'm glad you told me, and we can be your advocate on that. Over here, Walt.
Hi, my name is Alshada Yemene. I'm the mother of a 6-year-old boy on the autism spectrum. And I just wanted, it's not so much of a policy change, but more maybe an operational one. It's very overwhelming. I mean, there are a lot of resources, and you know, I've tried to kind of go to these types of meetings to like learn more, but like the woman in the back with her 14-year-old son, you just don't know what you don't know. And it's like a part-time job trying to, you know, even though my son's 6 years old, I'm trying to learn about transition, you know, information, just because I don't, and keep kind of in touch with the organizations that run these things so that I can keep, and that's just overwhelming. And was wondering, you know, is there like kind of a gateway or, you know, like a warehouse or something like that, like some one-stop shopping where, you know, parents of kids with special needs can go and learn about all the different options for every stage of their life.
Sure. We have an excellent website called Info Montgomery, but I'm going to let Jay Kinney describe to you how to find the information you need.
Well, again, I think we should connect after this, and I'll be talking with my experts, Kim and Eldora and Rosemary, about that. But that's the place to begin. I mean, there's a 3,000 number. Some folks get into the system by calling MC311. We have a number which we'll put out, 240-777-3000. It's our entry point that will connect you to Kim and staff around that, and they do run the autism waiver, and we can just talk about that, your unique circumstances. But that would be the entree to get into aging and disability services, is what we call the 3000 line. 240-777-3000, but it is on the county's website, as Mr. Leventhal mentioned, another way to find that. But let's stay after this meeting and connect and talk a little more specifically.
There's a resource fair on Saturday.
And yes, hopefully you saw this handed out, the resource fair on your chair. Another excellent place, right, Carla, to come into and meet people and get connected. And Sue Hartung, this is something that the DD Advisory Committee has been talking about and working on, is really trying to make it more streamlined and accessible for parents, because it is tough to navigate. We do understand that. So,
Thank you. Thank you for the excellent question. I know it can be overwhelming. And of course, you're coping just with the challenge of your child all by himself, and then you have to figure out the array of services. So it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. I really understand.
Hi, my name is Julie. I have a 19-year-old son with autism. And I'm happy to hear of all the stories of great services in Montgomery County. Unfortunately, that's not our position. We moved to the county when my son was 13, and with an 8-year waiting list for the waiver, that's not going to happen. The DDA waiting list concerns us, and I was hoping that somebody else might address that too. I think the numbers I saw were over 1,000 in Montgomery County alone. I know that this is difficult because it's a difficult personal situation that my family's in, but my
Take your
son,
time.
he went into crisis shortly after we moved to Maryland and was hospitalized, Kennedy Krieger's MDU, for almost a year. So that's one policy / people who need governmental help. I would say any child with a developmental disability who is encountering extreme behavioral issues, a psychiatric ward is not where they should be. My son was in and out of Shepherd Pratt and at the MBU, and I would say the MBU is not for everyone. So that there needs to be some sort of crisis intervention. I know so many families who are there, who are almost prisoners in their own home because of behaviors that unfortunately are associated with autism. The other thing would be that even with my son at that level, we have been unable to get any type of help from the government. no help from DDA. When he was being discharged from the MBU, he was elevated to crisis resolution, right? One of those 9 people or however many are on that list. And when our MARS coordinator came to our house, they said, okay, this is, wow, we'll get on this, because he was supposed to come home. And 2 days later, our MARS coordinator called back and said, I'm sorry, there's no funding. You're not going to be getting services. So if we weren't getting help, I don't know who would. So those issues need to be, and if there's anyone in this room, DDA, HSS, whoever can explain to me sort of future, how the waiting list is being addressed, how people in crisis are being addressed, I would appreciate speaking to anyone who has information on that.
I really appreciate your testimony. Again, I don't want to try to offer simple solutions. I think the best thing that for a policymaker and for other policymakers who are here is that we hear the direct testimony and we understand what you're coping with. But I appreciate you telling the story. Uma, did you want to comment?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Kim Mayo's here, and she'll spend some time talking with you. Kim, you want to wave? Just let her know, and you can connect. I did want to make sure that everybody recognizes the importance of keeping the pressure of advocacy at the state level. This is it's a large and complicated issue, and we're not going to be able to do this at the county level. It's just too big, Our programs supplement the state, and so I understand if the state doesn't trigger its service, then how far are we able to go to help, right? So the first issue is to keep the DDA, and Susan Hartung over there, she knows. And Susan Ingram, we've all had these conversations. I've been here over 10 and a half years. This issue of sort of where the state goes with this and how much, I understand that the state did get some funding in fiscal year 18. There is some additional slots that they're going to open, but which slots, where, I don't know for sure, but Kim may know better and be able to help. The second issue I want to bring up, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. We talk about Medicaid, and Medicaid's one of the most generous health programs, right? But a lot of parents actually have private insurance and are struggling to they don't want to have their children enter child welfare systems or be a household of one to get Medicaid, which is often what we have to ask them to do in order to get the more generous benefit package, right? And I've sort of been thinking a lot about parity, not between mental health and somatic care, but parity between Medicaid and private insurance. And should the state insurance benefit package, then this would be sort of advocacy. I'm looking at Susan, but others too. But this would be advocacy that we would really, there is what used to be the MDLC, the Maryland Disability Law Center. I think they have a new name now. But if there was a way that we could do advocacy with the Maryland Insurance Commissioner too, to say what would it take to offer a more generous benefit package, it could be sitting outside of the general offerings. I think there are many parents who would pay a little bit more if they could have that more generous benefit package without having, especially as we think about all the Medicaid risks, that would be another place I think that we could pivot and do some advocacy. So I just want to put that word out there.
While we're talking about Medicaid, maybe if you could hold on to the microphone for a minute, are we expecting good news on the reimbursement of the wage supplement for caretakers?
So it's going a lot slower than we anticipated, and part of the reason is Jay and I have been up at the state several times, Kim, to having this conversation about the Medicaid match. One of the things that our consultant did tell us on the match, and we'll be happy to share more of this with you, we have a memo working through the executive branch. We cannot tie the supplement to wage enhancement. So that would not go over well for a Medicaid match. So that's a little bit of an issue with the 125%, and we have to think through with our providers. It's easy to offset something else, but we just have to sit down and have that conversation. The second issue is that the state is still in the process of setting its rates, and until it completes its rate-setting process, they will not be able to give us the data that we need to submit the Medicaid match submission, our proposal, which has to then go through the state. So we're behind on this. We had hoped easily that by fall of this year we would have submitted our proposal. But we're still waiting for the state, and the state has said it's spring of next year.
So on the
April
first
of
issue,
next
we'd have
year.
to describe it as general support from the county, not as based on
Wage,
wages.
yes.
And that's the
Yes.
issue, okay.
And then
Yeah.
we have to be very careful that it isn't duplicating what Medicaid is paying for, which creates an interesting challenge, because you not only have to not be double dipping, right? We have to make it distinct enough. And so the word supplement itself, they said, was not a good word to use. So we have some
Financial assistance.
Okay.
yeah, we have some guidance
We're gonna have
from
to
the
take a look at that.
consultants, but we'll have to do some work on it. So that wage supplement,
The council may have to change our budget language also.
the locking
Yeah.
the money to, but since it's not going to happen till spring of next year, we have from a budget standpoint,
year's budget, we may have to
it's
change the
very, very
language.
tight, whether we'll have enough guidance by then or not. I actually am doubtful. They've just been
The issue
pushing
is that
us.
we love all of our providers, but we want to make sure that if we are supplementing wages, that the money we give the providers goes to supplement wages, and that it doesn't go to offset other expenses, which might be reimbursable by the state. But now we're finding, and we thought that because that's county support, that there might be matching Medicaid funds, but what they're telling us is that you can't get matching funds for a wage supplement, so we may have to back away from being rigid about having the money used as a wage supplement, but somehow we want to make sure that it goes to those caretakers. That's who, I mean, we love our providers and we want to support them too, but they are largely supported by the state. The rationale for the wage supplement was that we have the higher cost of living than the other jurisdictions, and so that's why we agreed that county dollars ought to be added. So we're going to have to find a way to work around that.
We just have to work with it a little bit. This is just guidance from the consultant. We haven't yet, DDA hasn't weighed in, and they won't until they're willing to let the proposal go forward. So there's still a few steps in between.
But each year in our budget, we've had language for the last few years that has said the purpose of this appropriation is to supplement wages, and the provider must document that that's what it's being used for, and we may have to back away from that. Yep. Susan had another comment.
A couple quick things here. Our group is very happy to advocate at the state level. I just want to remind you, though, that as an arm of the Commission on People with Disabilities, we need the county's approval to advocate at the state level. So when we come to you with those issues, we hope we'll get that support. The other thing I want to say to the woman with the 6-year-old, it's more than a part-time job, and you don't get paid for it. It's raising a child with disability is incredibly difficult. And I think one of the answers here, once you turn 14, you have this transition person who can help you navigate it. Before you're 14, you're really relying on the school system. And I think I'm not sure, is anybody here from MCPS? I think oh, yeah, Margie, you were, I'm sorry. But you're, I'm sorry. I know that. I really am sorry. But again, transition 14 and up. And when you really might need the help is when they're little and just getting diagnosed. And it seems to me the school system is where your child spends most of the day. It's a logical way of maybe trying to look at that differently, how we connect some of that knowledge.
Great, excellent conversation. We really do want to be able to stay in touch with those of you who would like to have us stay in touch with you. So I see the clipboards going around. If you haven't yet left us with your contact information, email address, et cetera, please make sure you sign in before you go. Okay, and there's sign-in sheets in the back as well if you don't get the clipboard, but I guess it's being sent around. Yes, ma'am, please.
I have a comment about NCPS. They never give you any information when the kids are little. I have barely information from MCPS. Until now, my kid is in high school. Finally, when he's 14, they told me about DDA. I didn't know about the autism waiver until he's really old. So I'm still in waiting list. I don't know if I'm gonna get it in the coming years, but I really think that MCPS, they need to take more responsibility and give us more information about the service out there, because it's no one. If you don't know the right person, you're gonna be lost in the system, which is really hard.
I understand. And it's okay to have recommendations for MCPS as well. We'll include whatever feedback we get in this document with policy options, including recommendations for MCPS. All right, who else would like to comment? Have we cleared the air of all our grievances?
Yeah, I have one more comment, just because I haven't heard it said yet. But I hear from a lot of families from the support group that long-term support, what happens after we can't do it anymore? And, you know, I know one person, Joan Karasek, that's still alive at 99, but I don't know how many of us will live to 99 to do that. So what, you know, it's a real problem. It's not just the special needs trust. It's like, you know, who's going to give my son his $20 when he needs it, or who's going to be rep payee?
Right.
And that's, you know, my son's self-directed, but, you know, it's a real problem.
It is.
And there's a lot of people out there.
It is indeed, and that's what animated my asking for this paper on housing
It's not
options,
just
but it's not
housing.
just housing. I fully
Housing
understand.
is just one part of it. The
You bet.
independent living skills is another thing.
I completely agree. Right. It's a very good point. Well, have we covered everything? All right, well, I want to thank everyone so much for giving up your evening. I learned a lot. I have to say that my own experience interacting with families who have members who are differently abled, I really mean this sincerely, because these circumstances affect people from every background, those who are very fortunate in terms of resources and those who are not, no matter what language they speak at home, no matter where they come from originally. I find that the experience of having someone in your family who is challenged in these ways builds empathy and understanding for other people's suffering. So I have found personally that my interaction with these families has been very rewarding for me. I have great respect for the challenges that you're coping with. I understand the difficulty, and I've just tried as best I can in my 15 years in public office to be responsive and to be a friend. I don't know how much longer my own time in public office will continue. That'll be something the voters will decide next year, but I certainly want to thank everybody here for the opportunity I've had to work on these issues. I think the meaning of life is service to others, and we're put here on earth to try to help, and not to think about ourselves, but to try to help solve other people's problems and assist them to find their own solutions. So I learned a lot from this conversation, and I want to continue to do this work as long as I have the opportunity to. And in any event, we will be developing this policy document that will leave behind for the next round of elected officials who are selected by the voters next year. So, so it's been my honor to listen to all of you, and I work for you. I'm here to serve you and to try to find innovative solutions to some of these issues. So I just really want to thank you very, very much for your participation.